So recently, the Lord has been speaking to me about the high of idols. This revelation started when I finally received something that I previously wanted so badly, and it wasn't as exciting when I received it. The first commandment is, "You shall have no other gods before me." And I think it's easy to think that you're not breaking that commandment when you're not literally worshiping other gods, like in false religions. When you look at the definition of worship, the first definition certainly includes, worshiping some type of deity. But the second part of the definition is what I'm referring to here, and that is to regard with great or extravagant respect, honor, or devotion. And that in of itself is not a bad thing. Even with your spouse, you want to have great respect, great honor, great devotion to your spouse. It becomes a problem when that respect, honor, or devotion is at a higher level than the respect, honor, or devotion that you have for God. And that is when whatever that thing is becomes an idol. This passage in Psalm 135 is so interesting. So in Psalm 135, 15 through 18, it says, "The idols of the nations are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths, but do not speak. They have eyes, but do not see. They have ears, but do not hear. Nor is there any breath in their mouths. Those who make them become like them. So do all who trust in them." This passage reminds me of the many times that Jesus said, "Those who have ears to hear or eyes to see." And what I gather from this passage is that, those who worship idols are spiritually mute, blind, deaf, and spiritually dead. So the example that I have that started this revelation for me was the pursuit of my college degree. Now, when I was young, when I was in high school, even elementary school, I didn't care about school at all. I failed classes, I didn't care, I didn't do my homework, and I inevitably dropped out of school when I was in 11th grade. So after I got saved later in life, I felt the Lord calling me to ministry and to go to Bible college, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But I wanted this so badly, not just because, I wanted preparation for ministry or the Lord was calling me there, but deep down inside, it was like I wanted to prove, I was different now and I did care about school and I could do this. And the desire became unhealthy because when I started it, my husband and I were still together, and it was easy to do school and have a partner to help you with bills and everything else. But when my husband and I split up, it was not easy. And I was having to drive, an hour away to work every day. I was a single mom, running my kid back and forth to basketball practice while trying to be in school full time, trying to maintain that same lifestyle when I was by myself, and I was working myself to death. Needless to say, no matter how hard I tried, there literally just was not enough time in the day to do all the things I needed to do. And I got to the place that I only had 4 classes left of my bachelor's degree. But it was breaking me down so badly, and I had been trying so hard to finish these classes. I felt like I was having a mental breakdown. And the Lord just told me, let it go. And it was so hard because I was like, let it go. I only have 4 classes left. Am I not going to finish this degree? But at the same time, the Lord giving me permission to let it go felt like 100 bricks lifted off my shoulders. So I was just like, yes, I wanted to let it go, even though I wanted it so bad. It was just the stress was killing me. So I obeyed. And 2 years later, the Lord worked it out perfectly in his crazy supernatural way where I could work and finish my last 4 classes. and I got to complete my degree. But I was disappointed. Um, I was disappointed because I wanted this so bad, a couple years prior, and I would have just, jumped for joy, fell to my knees and cried when I finally got to finish it. And 2 years later, I didn't have the same reaction. It's almost like I had forgotten about it or just not really cared about it anymore. So when I finally finished it, it wasn't that big of a deal. Um, it felt flat. It wasn't that I wasn't happy or excited. I did feel a sense of accomplishment. I did have a little celebration with my family, but then it was just like, whatever. And it disappointed me because I had worked so hard for so long to get this degree. I wanted the reward of just the high. I wanted the high of completing it, and I was left wanting. And so I said to God, why is it that very often you don't give us blessings until we really don't want it anymore? It's like once you stop wanting the blessing, then he gives it to you. And it feels like a disappointment. Like I don't really care about it that much anymore. And I believe his answer to me was that it wasn't in its proper place. He didn't want me to get that kind of high off of that accomplishment. And the thought I had was maybe this is how normal people feel when they just go through school, complete their degree. It's not like they hit the lottery. It's not the best feeling in the world. It's just like, yes, okay, I finished it. I feel good. And then they move on with life. It meant more to me because of my personal experiences and, how bad I wanted it and thought I would never have it. And the Lord wanted it to be in its proper place. And I think a lot of times people say things like, when they're giving their reasons or justifications for why they're not spending time with God or reading the Bible or whatever, that it's hard to balance that because there's life. I have work, I have family, and, it's hard to balance my private time with God. When in reality, you're giving devotion to what's most important to you. Work and your family and your spouse, all those are good things, but they're out of order if they come before God. And if they come before God, if you hold these things in a higher regard, give more devotion to these things, they always leave you wanting. Because nothing can replace a relationship with God. Nothing can replace the high that God brings. This is why the saying exists, there ain't no high like the Most High. And it's true. Anyone who's ever felt and experienced the presence of God, it is like, speaking as a former addict, it is like the best high I've ever experienced in my life. The most euphoric feeling it is, and the only way I've been able to describe it is it just feels like pure love, pure happiness. And it's not that we get to experience that all the time. I wish we could, but nothing compares to that. And you won't ever experience it if you're not spending time with God. I honestly believe, because of my experience as a former addict, that drugs are a counterfeit, the devil's counterfeit for the presence of God. People don't do drugs because it makes them feel bad. People do drugs because it makes them feel good. There is a high, there is a euphoria. And the funny thing is, that's not a bad thing to want to feel that way. But it is a counterfeit. It's a counterfeit of the presence of God. And that's why people, are so addicted to it, because they want that. In this evil and painful world, they want to experience that euphoria and joy. And they just don't know that the Lord provides that 100 times better. I'm reminded of a scene in the movie Jesus Revolution where Chuck first met Lonnie. And he was talking about these kids, and they were showing scenes of them like being at the concert and, tripping on acid. And he said, that these kids were searching for all the right things in all the wrong places. And that resonated with me so much since I experienced it myself. It's not bad that they're looking for that high, that euphoria, that happiness, that joy. They just don't know that that comes from the Lord. So any addiction you have in your life, you can use the words idol and addiction interchangeably, really. If you're addicted to drugs, if you're addicted to your spouse, your work, college, your kids, whatever, it's going to leave you wanting, and it's going to cause chaos in your life because it's out of order. But the good news is that you are free to be addicted to God. As much as you want, you are free to be addicted to Him. There will not be chaos in your life because you're addicted to God. So just put it to the test. Put more focus and devotion on the Lord than anything else in your life, and see if there's chaos in your life. See if it's out of order. It won't be. That high that you're chasing in whatever you're idolizing at the moment, the chaos that you're experiencing in whatever area of life you've depended on to fill that void or give you that high, all can be resolved if you just simply switch your focus. Truly, sincerely put the Lord first, and He will put everything else in order. And He will never allow you to get the high from anything else that you should only be getting from Him.